Okay, so let's take this all over again. The Kuwaiti oil minister says Nigeria and Libya has been invited to the July 24 meeting in St. Petersburg in Russia to discuss the current state of their oil output and how soon they will stabilize around the official OPEC quota among member states. Nigeria has 2.2 million barrels. We'll still have a couple of 100,000 of barrels to reach that cap. So Nigeria and Libya may be asked to cap their oil output at those levels as soon as they can reach them. Of course, the decision to cut back oil production unsettled global oil market last May. That's about 2 months ago, and prices have since fallen below $50 a barrel. We're seeing $46.91 early today. Of course, the oil market moves very rapidly, and that's the news this morning, and we're going to chew that over. But more important, let's tie that into the bigger electricity story about Nigeria, the government, the discos, the gencos, all of them, including MBET, all are crying for money with debts and funding gaps very deep. The folks on the street are the one suffering it. So we're talking about electricity and what the options the markets provide for this very critical sector. Obianuju Unsofo, investment analyst, one of the team from Afrinvest. Good morning.
Good morning, boss.
It's good to have you here.
Yes.
So let's put some power into this conversation. Let's see if we can get electricity if we use the equities and the debt markets. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's certainly something that's been on the lips of major stakeholders, getting these power assets listed on Nigerian Stock Exchange. I mean, looking at the sectors, the power sector is yet to be fully represented in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So I think my view would be in the different segments of the sector, which is best fit to list. I wouldn't put my bet on the gencos. I mean, we already have the likes of Forte and Transcorp already listed on the stock exchange, and the crises that have plagued the power sector are still ongoing. But majorly, we need to look at the discos. They need to solve the metering problem. You look at EcoDisco, they have successfully metered their maximum demand of their premium customers. I think they have about 3 years to cover, to meter all their customers. I mean, if EcoDisco, for instance, should list on the stock exchange and raise equity, they could be able to achieve this mandate and thereby solve one of the liquidity challenges that has been plaguing the sector.
The discos are the last in the old strata of electricity. They're the next to the people, to the customers. So we call them the downstream. That's what you analysts call them. That's the downstream part of the Nigeria's electricity market, isn't it? Well, so they're like the petrol retailers, like Forte Oil, Owando, Mobil,
you can see
MRS. That. Yes. So if we have these downstream in the oil and gas listed on the market, why don't we have the discos as well listed on the market? And as you said, they can do equities to new investors, and they can actually get Nigerians to put their money where their mouth is, and their mouth where the money is.
Yeah, because what's happening now in the discos is that the money they're actually getting, they're using to service their loans rather than invest in metering, which is a problem. I mean, you look at early this year where the federal government introduced 701 billion intervention funds. I mean, there's no guarantee that how these funds are actually going to be paid back. There's no guarantee currently at place. I mean, this just leaves these discos unaccountable and inefficient in their operations, and in the long run it's just going to lead to more cry for intervention, and it's just going to be a cycle all over again. So definitely what's happened, the major problem in the sector, in the whole value chain, is primarily a cash flow problem which needs to be solved.
A cash flow problem, a cash flow problem. And I keep wondering how we got into this mess, as it were, for a cash flow problem. If you have a cash flow problem as a company, you just go to the market. So you do either equities or you do debt, isn't it? And you guess you can refinance your existing loans, isn't it? You bring in new money and what have you. And we're still talking to the equity side of things. The discos are partly owned by the government and the new investors that bought part of it November 2013. So in terms of how this will come together, how they should come together to the market, Dolapo was talking about who should sell down. do you think is the federal government that should sell now, or the private owners that are the discos already?
Well, the initial plan was to get these power assets privatized. I mean, that was to allow for efficiency in their operation. So it's most likely skewed towards the federal government. They should let go of their stake and let market forces determine operations in the power sector.
You think if, okay, so for the sake of argument, if we have 45% government stake in discos right now, it's between 35 or thereabouts. So you think government should do, maybe just do now 20-25% offer for sale?
Well, definitely it's going to be getting these investors to actually partake in these power assets. I mean, looking at the sector, is currently unattractive for investment. The cost and the tariffs they are not cost reflective, so it's getting these investors to actually buy into these power assets that should be the focus. So I mean, NSE requirements requires 3 years of your financial reports. I mean, there's a lot of due diligence that these companies have to partake in order to get listed on the stock exchange.
Well, this is very tough time. We're talking about the principle of, maybe we'll use the doctrine of necessity here, in which you say, look, Oscar Onyema and the rest of his team at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and if we're looking at the debt side, I'm not too sure what the requirements are for FMDQ, OTC, if they're going to do debt side of it on FMDQ to get both the equities and debt in at the same time so that things get a lot better. But of course, they need to say, look, we don't have 5-year financial statements, we have 3 years. Yeah. But the government is still the big brother, the big elephant in the room. So with the government saying, look, we're selling down 2025 out of our existing 45%, can we just waive that regulation and tweak it a little bit with the Ministry of Finance, whoever, and say, look, that will allow the discos, the 11 of them, to get on the market and raise the necessary funding so that we can get this cash flow problem solved. Because it looks like every day and each day we delay because the government does not have a dime to put on the table, technically speaking.
Well, yeah, I think the government has made some efforts on their part. If you look at also this year, the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing issued a mandate, a directive stating 4 categories of eligible customers who can buy power directly from the GENCOs. I mean, this is coming on the back of the illiquidity that has plagued the sector. So I'll just highlight 2 factors that could actually solve some of the issues there. One of which is an increase in capacity, because according to the mandate, GENCOs cannot sell power already committed to NBET. So what they can do is sell exchanged power or new power to these eligible customers. So as a GENCO, is going to create a kind of incentive for them to actually increase their wheeling capacity. Also, due to the contract they have with the eligible customers, it kind of reduces the liquidity challenges that they have faced. So that on the part of the government was a very bold and welcome idea.
Let's step back to just before this conversation about the tariffs and using the market to raise funds. If government is going to let go of certain percentage, whether to do debt or equity, we still need a cost-reflective tariff. So if the government and Ministry of Power Housing and Ministry of Power and everybody agree that we're going to the market, one way or the other, tariffs will have to go up. So as a customer, am I willing to dip my hands in my pocket and come up with some money to buy shares in the discos? At the same time, the government is going to say, hold on a second, we're going to raise tariffs because there's no free lunch, there's no free money anywhere.
Well, looking at the power sector recovery plan that was released this year, the federal government actually highlighted that they plan to remove the issue of subsidy. So there's plans to make these tariffs very